person reads, for example, Quran, you can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send the reward of that Quran to someone that has passed away. So the practice of the pious after all their salah, after any recitation of Quran, any adhkar that they do is they read Surah Fatiha with the intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send the reward of that particular ibadah to the Prophet sallallahu the Sahaba, Tabi'een, our near and dear loved ones from our parents and family, to the whole Ummah of the Prophet sallallahu. And one of the Shaykh recently also mentioned, and he said we must make the intention that Allah sends a reward to the Mujahideen as well. Because dhikr and adhkar and ibadah have a spiritual power, besides just the thawab and the reward that a person gets from it. And he mentioned that the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, when they were fighting, this was their request. Besides the dua that people would make was, when we find alhamdulillah some groups, they would do this, read khatams of Quran. But you must make that intention. Allah give the spiritual power of that ibadah to the mujahideen. That's also how you can partake in helping them. And a person should do this with all of their ibadah. And Allah gives the reward without anything being decreased from your side. Inshallah, we continue. I was actually a bit concerned. They said 4 to 7, 3 hours, but alhamdulillah, people seem to be still in good shape, alhamdulillah. So we were speaking about negation, La ilaha illallah. And the different types of negation that a person can envisage or visualize will depend on the amount of time that you spend with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that will change from time to time. It will change on your condition. It can change from focusing on yourself to start helping other people as well. The whole purpose of the negation, as we said, is to realize that there is nothing that happens, nothing that exists. There's no objective besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this kalima la ilaha illallah, we find Prophet also saying that the best of what any of the prophets came before, or the best words which they came before with, was la ilaha illallah. And it is said that, obviously we know the hadith that if la ilaha illallah is placed in the scales on the day of Qiyamah, and everything else is placed in the scales, on the other side of the scales, then la ilaha illallah would outweigh everything else. The kalima la ilaha illallah is the entry into Jannah. Which brings us to just a very small side point we want to mention, because we spoke about what's happening in Gaza, and that is our duty as Muslims, and what is our responsibility towards la ilaha illallah. Who can answer that question? What is our responsibility towards la ilaha illallah? What is our responsibility? Anyone? You have to be true to it. Proclaim it, internalize it. What is la ilaha illallah? If we said the whole purpose of this existence was la ilaha illallah, what does that mean? The whole story, is there any secret of life which no one has yet discovered? People think that there's still something, they're going to find something on Mars or in some part of the universe. The realities in the haqa'iq of deen will never change. La ilaha illallah is meant for a person to attain salvation in the hereafter. The Prophet ﷺ said it is your deeds which you do, and then it's either heaven or hell. Your responsibility towards La ilaha illallah is to introduce it to as many human beings on this earth as is possible, so that you can save them from other than La ilaha illallah. And in today's times we find, especially after what's happening on the 7th of October, there are throngs and throngs of people looking for the deen and looking for Islam. And more people that accepted Islam than even the amount of people that have passed away. The question we need to ask ourselves is, and we are mentioning beautiful things about La ilaha illallah, how many people don't even know about this reality of La ilaha illallah, just in its physical form? How many people don't even know about the beauty of Islam? We were speaking about this aspect when Rashad mentioned knowledge, the tazkiyah and action. Action is the da'wah. Action is sharing it with people. We have to start taking it upon ourselves as individuals and not as groups. As individuals, to start doing da'wah in a very active and organized form with non-Muslims. We were speaking also to the brothers and we were saying also people are complaining about this country and corruption and whatever's happening in corporate organizations and on government levels. Who's responsible for all the corruption in the country? Who's responsible? Who's responsible for everything that goes wrong in this country? Hey? Government. Shaitan. The ANC. What did we say earlier? We said when your wife troubles you or your husband troubles you, what does the Awliya say? It's me. If you're living in this country, the Prophet ﷺ says, كَمَا تَكُونُوا تُوَلَّى عَلَيْكُمْ. As you are, so shall you be ruled over. And so we, not even we, everyone has to think that I am the cause of the corruption in this country. And why? Is because those people who are involved in corruption, they don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They might not even believe in the hereafter. They have no accountability. Where are the voices of people making TikTok videos and Instagram? We all use it. And if we are swallowing up more than we are producing, then it's almost a form of treason to our responsibility to La ilaha illallah. What are we sharing? If there's a problem of corruption in your organization, and it's so easy with social media to do that, you can make a video on your own account without imposing on anyone, but everyone in your contact list will see it. And you speak about the importance of truthfulness, the importance of justice, the human values which everyone shares. Who are the ones that are reminding people about it in today's times? Right? And our duty as Muslims on this earth is only to invite people towards La ilaha illallah. And that means reminding people about these human values, right? The moral values. And when you speak about truthfulness, it hits a chord in everyone. You speak about justice, when you speak about chastity. There are people who are speaking about chastity in such a way that when someone listens, they desire to be chaste. But the voices of all those that are calling towards immorality and immodesty is louder. And so if people don't have access to the voices of good, they think, okay, so everyone's doing it, so we can also do it. And a very important point I wanted to mention, and I mentioned it to some of the brothers this morning, is one of our biggest reasons as Muslims that the message is not being spread is because we are too shy. We are too shy. We have the greatest message, and we believe we have the greatest message, but we're shy to share it with people. And what's going to happen, I was in Madrid, the Turkish masjid, last week. And just sitting there in the office, and a woman walks in and she wants to accept Islam. I went 2 days later because I needed to meet someone coming from Pretoria, and again, go there, someone else comes in, accepts Islam. And I think there's Muslims in this country for years and years, but Allah has brought the Turks to South Africa to allow people to accept Islam at their hands. يا أيها الذين آمنوا من يرتد منكم عن دينه فسوف يأتي الله بقوم تحبهم ويحبونه. يحبهم ويحبونه. If you turn away from the religion, Allah will bring those whom He loves and they love Him. Right? Allah will come with such a people whom He loves and they love Him. And they will spread the religion. All the names of the greatest du'at, of the greatest scholars to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in today's times are the names that are famous that we all hear, who they are reverts to Islam. And people that were Muslims in their own countries now go to them for spiritual guidance. And we still have an opportunity in this country, thanks to the likes of Shaykh also in Durban as well, who is carrying the mantle. And when we involve ourselves in da'wah towards non-Muslims, we extricate ourselves from the bickering and the infighting in our own communities because we realize what's important and we realize fulfillment. A person will only feel fulfilled if you are involved in seeing someone else develop themselves. So teachers are amongst the most fulfilled of people and social workers, right? Because you are involved in lifting people out from their situations of whether it's depravity or poverty, or when it comes to education, you can see a person developing. But how so if you bring a person out of kufr? Who has ever been present at a time of someone accepting Islam? Maybe at a show of hands. Who has ever been present at the time of someone accepting Islam? How many of you ever yourselves made someone else a Muslim? Alhamdulillah. Habib Umar, when he came to South Africa a few years ago, and he was sitting in one of the communities and he asked someone, how long are you living here? And they said 30 years. And he said, how many people accepted Islam with your hands? And the person was like, have you said 30 years and you haven't accepted, not a single non-Muslim has accepted Islam with you. What's the purpose of our living on this earth? When that person accepted Islam, if you were present, what did you feel? Was there an energy? Did you feel like crying? Right? What's that energy? What was that experience? That connection is what people are looking for when they're sitting in dhikr in their private quarters. Right? What are you looking for when you do dhikr? Looking for connection. And it's at that point when someone comes out of kufr into iman that who is the most happy that that person has accepted Islam? It's the Prophet ﷺ. And if the Prophet ﷺ is happy, then the Sahaba and the Awliya and the Malaika and the Shaykh, heavens and earth are happy because this person has actually come out of kufr. And some people make taking non-Muslims out of kufr into iman their wird or their litany or their form of dhikr. Not just one or two people, every single day. Right? Because they have this care and concern. And again it comes back to when you're spending your private time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you have this concern to want to bring people out, then you don't need to do the da'wah also physically with your tongue. Just walking in a place will become a form of da'wah. And we've seen this with our own eyes. Some of our mashayikh, just walking in the airport and someone comes and says, who is this person? I want to be like him. What attracted you? He says, I don't know. There's just something about him and I'm being pulled towards him. And now we see it happening with the people of Gaza. When Muslims love the meaning of La ilaha illallah, what happens? People are coming to Islam. And so a person who is, if you have non-Muslim colleagues or you have non-Muslim friends or companions and you've been living with them and they are not interested in Islam, then we need to start asking ourselves a question. And so La ilaha illallah is an ocean without any end. Because the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is infinite. No person ever reaches a point where they are fulfilled. You will continue. And the meanings of La ilaha illallah will continue to open upon a person's heart as long as the person is continuously dedicating themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After La ilaha illallah, we have salutations of the Prophet ﷺ, which people would do in different forms, in different styles. Because of time, and salutations of the Prophet ﷺ and just connecting to the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a topic all on its own. And especially in Durban and Johannesburg, this topic actually sometimes requires a lot of depth and understanding. In our going around, a lot of people, and one of our biggest reasons also of going to Yemen, right, is because it's a place where the offspring of the Prophet ﷺ exist. But not just that, it's because when you see someone who is a lover of the Prophet ﷺ, this person's demeanor, their character, their mannerisms is very different from someone. We don't claim people don't love the Prophet ﷺ, but there's a difference in spending time with someone who, when the name of the Prophet ﷺ is mentioned, their eyes would tear up. Right? Where does it come from? And this was the description we hear about the Sahaba. Right? Because these meanings of La ilaha illallah that we are talking about, where did it come from? It came from the Prophet ﷺ. When we hear that the ulama are the inheritors of the Prophet ﷺ, they don't just, or they didn't just inherit his knowledge. What did they inherit? They inherited his spiritual states. Prophecy has ended, but the spiritual states, the meanings which the Prophet ﷺ desired for people to understand or put into their hearts. بَلْ هُوَ آيَاتٌ بَيِّنَاتٌ. Who knows the verse? فِي صُدُورِ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ. And Allah describes Knowledge, when he describes guidance, what does he say? بَلْ هُوَ آيَاتٌ بَيِّنَاتٌ. These are clear signs that we have placed them where? فِي صُدُورِ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ. In the chests of those who have been granted knowledge, in the hearts of those who have been granted knowledge. The knowledge is not in the books. Okay, the knowledge is in the hearts. And the whole purpose of companionship and the whole purpose of spending time with people who are of pure hearts is that in doing your adhkar and spending your time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are keeping your soul as a receptacle. It is pure to receive. When you spend the time of the people of Allah who are oceans, they then flow out into your cup, depending on how pure your cup is. So if you've been spending your time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your cup is ready to receive. But if you haven't, it's like you're sitting you don't have the right frequency. And so the things which the people of Allah will give for people to read would be to keep their hearts attuned. So that when the time for outpouring has come, when the time comes that you are in your salah, the prescriptive forms of ibadah, when they come, your heart is ready to receive. But if the heart's not ready to receive, then obviously a person won't be able to achieve anything. Imam Ghazali says if the cup is polluted or it's dirty, no one will feel honey in it. First need to. And the istighfar and the la ilaha illallah is the purification of this. The salutations of the Prophet ﷺ is the purification. Some people and some spiritual paths make the salutations of the Prophet ﷺ, or the durood is, we know it here, a path in and of itself. They will just give the murid to read the salutations of the Prophet ﷺ as much as possible. Right? With presence of heart, without presence of heart, they'll just read day and night. In the same way, when we spoke about connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and spending that private time and doing the presence of heart, we need to bring these same meanings and understandings in the way we send salutations to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When we do our salutations or durood of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in whatever formulations, the simplest of which is sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin abdika wa rasulika nabiyyin wa ala alihi wa sallam, we said in that same manner, in that private, the intention here also is to come to the Prophet ﷺ, who the Prophet ﷺ said, تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ. Adopt the character of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is merciful, you be merciful. Allah is kareem, generous, you be generous. In those qualities which Allah wants us to be. And who is the one who is most resembling of the character of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The Prophet ﷺ. So if Allah told us that if we approach him, he will approach us. Will the Prophet ﷺ not then approach us if we approach him in the same way? Right? And so the same understanding, the same paradigm we bring to connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we bring to connecting to the Prophet ﷺ. Sitting in private, bringing to heart and mind that we want to be in the pleasure of the Prophet ﷺ in what he brought from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how we need to live our lives. We want that love of the Prophet ﷺ. And then a person does their durood, or they do their salutations on the Prophet ﷺ with complete presence of heart. They can imagine themselves sitting in front of the Rawdah Sharif in Medina. They can imagine themselves, if you read the biography, and it should be a daily practice, you can imagine yourself while you're reading the salutation of the Prophet ﷺ, imagine yourself being a Sahaba in the Battle of Badr or in the Battle of Uhud, and you are defending him from those arrows. Or imagining in any of the pictures in your mind that you know about the seerah, put yourself in that position and send your salutations on the Prophet ﷺ. This is how you live with him. And there's an immense amount of nur and light which enters the heart. The person sends salutation on the Prophet ﷺ with this presence of heart and mind. Our Mashaykh say that the image or the face of the Prophet ﷺ is the most beautiful thing that Allah created in entire existence. And everything that is beautiful in the world is only a small fraction of a resemblance of the beauty of the Prophet ﷺ. And that face and that beauty of the Prophet ﷺ is inscribed in the heart of every single believer. And the more you do salutations on the Prophet ﷺ, the more that image becomes engraved in the heart. And the whole purpose of the sunnah, following the sunnah, the du'as of eating, the du'as of drinking, is to bring yourself back to connecting with the Prophet ﷺ. And that image becomes stronger and stronger. And the more salutations you send on the Prophet ﷺ, that image then emerges. And when that image emerges, you find the person will then see the Prophet ﷺ in in their dreams. And the Prophet said in Sahih Bukhari that whoever sees me in their dreams will most certainly see me in wakefulness. In Tareem, they would tell the students that if you are studying the deen and you don't see the Prophet in your dream every 40 days, then you're wasting your time. How can you be studying the Sharia of Muhammad ﷺ, but you're not connected to Muhammad ﷺ? You're going to be teaching the deen according to who? To your own caprice, to your own ego. The mercy and the compassion and the understanding and the comprehensiveness of what Islam is can only be taught by a scholar if they are connected to the source of that mercy and rahmah and comprehensiveness and understanding. And so this relationship with the Prophet ﷺ is not just a by the way thing. It is as intrinsic as our dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah made him the door to himself. One very other important point when it comes to sending salutation of the Prophet ﷺ, and we all know the different forms of salutation in terms of what we know as durud. But something which we all do it, but we don't realize the implications of it. And perhaps maybe, Allah willing, there needs to be another whole session about just this concept of connecting or understanding the reality of who the Prophet ﷺ is. We all read in our tashahhud. What do we read in our tashahhud in salah? At-tahiyyatu lillahi wa salatu wa tayyibat. And then, what do we do? Who sanctioned greeting the Prophet ﷺ in tashahhud? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? In your most private ibadah, Allah asks you to what? And not even to say Allahumma salli, to say Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To address the Prophet ﷺ with the kaf of khitab. In Arabic, when you say ka, you only do it to someone who is where? Who is in front of you, who is present. Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Right? And this is a huge door which Prophet ﷺ opened and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened up for us. So when you sit in your private quarters and you're doing the salutation of the Prophet ﷺ, however many you are used to, and always whenever you involve yourself in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or in any action which you get determination to do, recitation of Quran, don't go all out. This is one of Shaitan's tricks. That if you've never been reading Quran and you suddenly have the impetus to read Quran, he tells you, read 5 juz. Why? He wants to wear you out. You won't last even 3 or 5 days, and then what happens? You come little by little. Prophet taught us the most beloved acts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are those which are constant even though they are few. If you haven't ever done the dhikr of Allah, don't do hundreds and thousands. Start with 10. Right? And do every dhikr, every form of salutation with a new breath. Pay attention to your breath. The ruh, which is the soul, is connected to the rih, which is the breath. Because dhikr is what? Dhikr is done with the breath. What is dhikr? It's just the sound that's coming out of one's mouth. And when you do dhikr, every dhikr of La ilaha illallah with a new breath, this is how you maintain your composure, and also that you don't rush. It also means that you can concentrate on the meaning. Some of the people of Allah would say that when you say La ilaha illallah and you concentrate on that meaning, and you say La ilaha illallah, there's breath going out, they call this the wird, what you recite. Right? And for every wird, there is a warid. Every time you say La ilaha illallah, that's what you've presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The breath that you take in now after that La ilaha illallah, that's Allah's gift to you. And that breath contains secrets, that breath contains gifts, that breath contains what you'll find out if you start spending this time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, paying attention to your breath. Right? Because breath in and of itself is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they would say also the way to protect one's thoughts is to do the dhikr in this way, where you watch your breath. And then when you take the breath in, after having done the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that new breath now infuses you with a positivity, with an energy, with a nur, which is a protection from shaitan. When you talk about the adhkar, which the Prophet gave us as well as a protection, this is one of the ways in which this protection actually takes place. What we need to do then is, after our salutation of the Prophet ﷺ, is then to use this form of salutation which he himself taught us in the tashahhud. Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we make this a wird as well. If you're reading Sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam 100 times, then you say Assalamu alayka ayyuhan Nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh 100 times as well. And you imagine yourself also in front of the Rawdah of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He describes the Prophet ﷺ to us, He describes him to us as Harisun alaykum. He is concerned about you. If you have family problems, if you have debts, if you have economic problems, any problem that you have, there is no human being who is more concerned about you coming out of it than who? Than the Prophet ﷺ. Harisun alaykum. Right? And all of us want someone to talk to, right? All of us want a counselor, all of us want a friend to listen to our. Why do we not approach the one who is most concerned about us? Right? What did the Sahaba do? If anything happened, they came to the Prophet ﷺ. And we find also in the poetry of the Salihin, in their most emotional moments, when they were writing poetry, what do? They'd address the Prophet ﷺ. And Arabic allows for this addressing of the Prophet ﷺ, no matter where you are in the world. And so, Assalamu alayka ayyuhan Nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, you're saying it with your tongue, but with your heart, you are pouring everything out to the Prophet ﷺ. And you want him to take your problems and take your affairs and take everything, and he make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you. وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ جَاءُوكَ. Allah told the Sahaba, not the Sahaba. Verses of the Quran remain for eternity. And why not, when they wrong themselves, did they not come where? Did they not go to Allah? Did they not come to you? جَاءُوكَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا اللَّهَ فَاسْتَغْفَرَ لَهُمُ الرَّسُولُ. Why not, when they wrong themselves, did they not come to you? And then sought the forgiveness of Allah, and then the Prophet sought the forgiveness of Allah. فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا اللَّهَ وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ. Why not, when they wrong themselves, did they not come to you? جَاءُوكَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا اللَّهَ فَاسْتَغْفَرَ لَهُمُ الرَّسُولُ لَوَجَدُوا اللَّهَ تَوَّابًا رَحِيمًا. They would have then found Allah تَوَّابًا رَحِيمًا, oft returning and most merciful. And this is a key to approaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which one needs to become, that the Prophet ﷺ is the door to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah ordered the Sahaba in the Quran that if you want Allah to forgive you, come to the Prophet ﷺ. The one Sahaba, when he fell into sin, and he spent time outside of Medina, and he spent time in the desert for I don't know how long, and he tortured himself, and he said, I won't come to Medina until Allah forgives me, and he tied himself to the Abu Lubaba, they call it the pillar. It's a famous story. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? Why didn't he just come and ask me for forgiveness? Or ask me to ask Allah for forgiveness? End of story. Right? The closest way to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through the Prophet ﷺ. And this connection as well has oceans of meanings and openings, but we have to take the first step as well. And we need to start developing this very, very, very intimate relationship with the Prophet ﷺ through this method of sending salutations upon him, through the durud, the normal formulations, but also this formulations, they call it the salutations of khitab. Right? And some of the mashayikh would say, do the salat, the khitab of mahabba. Assalamu alayka ayyuhan Nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's one form. Assalamu alayka ya sayyidi ya Rasul, ya Assalamu alayka ya sayyidi ya habibi ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alayka ya sayyid al-mursaleen. Assalamu alayka ya khatam al-nabiyyin. Allah then inspires you. All the different names, all the different characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ, and now you start connecting with the Prophet ﷺ through his names and through his qualities. Right? And we have to make this time. His meanings can only open up to us, and his connections can only open up to us if we make that time to spend with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and spend with the Prophet ﷺ. And once someone has the connection with the Prophet ﷺ, and the door is open, you don't need a counselor, you don't need anyone else. Right? And obviously the recitation or the reading of the biography of the Prophet ﷺ should become a daily part of our lives. Obviously the other forms of dhikr are dua, which after we spend time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembering him, it's apt that one makes dua. And dua itself, in the exact same way, if you don't know what to say, Ya Allah, I don't know what to say. You just keep repeating, Ya Allah, I don't know what to ask you, I don't know. But I just want to spend this time. And I promise you, a week won't go by until Allah will inspire you what to say. Right? Allah wants us all to come to Him. Allah wants us to approach Him. And we are our own fields. In the same way we have the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have the 99 names of the Prophet. One can also use it in the form of dua, Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Allah, Ya Rahim, Ya Allah, Ya Kareem. Every day you drink from a different name. One day you're doing istighfar and you become so infused with your istighfar that the time goes and you don't even have time for the rest of the dhikr. The whole purpose of the dhikr, the recitation of Quran is what? Is that connection that you're looking for. I mean, you make that connection and you feel that relationship, now you pour your heart out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some people, they're so concerned about the numbers, I have to read my juz of Quran in 20 minutes. Now they're reading the Quran and these feelings come over them and what do they think? But if I get involved with this verse now, then I'm not going to finish my juz. It's not about the juz. The Prophet ﷺ would sit in his sajda from Isha all the way to Fajr on one verse. Which verse? Many times. The Prophet ﷺ would repeat different verses. Just Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sometimes the Prophet would repeat it over and over. إِن تَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ. What's the verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah? Isa alayhi salam, on the lisan of Isa alayhi salam. إِن تُعَذِّبْهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ عِبَادُكَ. On the day of Qiyamah, Isa alayhi salam will say, إِن تُعَذِّبْهُمْ, Ya Allah, if you punish them, then they are your servants. وَإِن تَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ, but if you forgive them, فَإِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. If you punish them, they are your servants. But if you forgive them, then you are Almighty. The Prophet will continue to repeat these verses over and over until the day of Qiyamah, until the time of Fajr. The verses in فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. The creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of night and day are signs for those who reflect. The Prophet repeated these verses throughout the entire night. Sayyidina Bilal came in the time of Fajr and saw the Prophet's eyes filled with tears. And said, Prophet, Allah, what has brought you to tears? And he said, Oh Bilal, such verses were revealed upon me tonight that woe unto him who reads them and does not ponder over them. The purpose of the Quran is to ponder over it, right? Over and above just the normal recitation. So if you have a set time that you're reading a juz 20 minutes, use that time. You complete the juz in 20 minutes, no problem. You read half a juz, but that set time that you made for it is there 20 minutes, no problem. You've read one page over and over in 20 minutes because you connected to that page or to that verse, no problem. Right? It's not about finishing, it's about spending that time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. We thought we'll go through a particular wird or something, but I'm not sure about the time. There's something called so we know what we have, the adhkar, which is what we know is wird al-am, la ilaha illallah, astaghfirullah, salutation of the Prophet. Then the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala developed what's known as litanies. And these were outpourings after having spent time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which Allah allowed to flow on their tongues because they wanted other people to connect as well. So they developed what's known as litanies. Right? They are wirds or they are adhkar for nafa, meaning you want to attain benefit. And then they are adhkar or wirds for dafa, meaning you want to ward off whether it's jinn or whether it's evil or any type of difficulties. And there's separate adhkar for these type of things. For example, Imam Shadili has what is called the Hizbun Nasr, the litany of victory. And this was specially written for the Mujahideen. And if someone doesn't know it, they should include it in their adhkar and read it with the intention for victory for the Mujahideen. Right? The Hizbun Nasr. Now Haddad also has what's called the Hizbun Nasr. He has what's called the Hizbul Bahr. Then we have the wird, for example, of Imam al-Nawawi. Now, we spoke earlier about Reiki and all this. I want to just translate for you guys the meaning of some of these words. Imam Nawawi obviously doesn't need introduction. He was one of the greatest scholars of Islam. He was one of the greatest awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the purpose of just going through just the beginning of the meanings is we want ourselves to understand how this connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happens. When we said you have to bring to mind what you're actually involving yourself in. So he starts when he says, in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the merciful. Bismillah ar-Rahman. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. In the name of Allah, Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Aqulu ala nafsi. Right? I am saying this Allahu Akbar way upon myself. I am taking Allahu Akbar in all of its power, in all of its meanings, in all of its potency. Allahu Akbar, aqulu ala nafsi. I am saying it upon myself. Ala nafsi, wa ala dini, and upon my religion, wa ala ahli, and upon my family, wa ala awladi, and upon my children, wa ala mali, and upon my wealth, wa ala ashabi, and upon my companions, wa ala adyanihim, and on the religion of my companions, wa ala amwalihim, and in the wealth of my companions. Alfa, 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 la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-ali al-azim. 1,000 times, right? And there's no power or strength except with the mercy, or there's no power and strength except with the might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? We find, and he repeats this a second and third time. Allahu Akbar ala nafsi. In the word of Imam Sakran, it says, Allahumma inni ahtattu bi darbillah. Allah, I have surrounded myself with your fortress. Right? This positive, what do you call it? In English, what do they call this? Affirmations. Right? Using the dhikr as a positive affirmation toward of evil. Right? He goes on to say, Bismillah wa billah wa min Allah wa ila Allah wa ala Allah wa fillah wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-ali. In the name of Allah, and through Allah, and from Allah, and towards Allah, and upon Allah, and there is no power and strength except with Allah, the Mighty, the Great. In the name of Allah, the best of all names on the earth and in the heavens. In the name of Allah I commence, in the name of Allah I end. Allah, Allah, Allah is my Lord and associate. These are simple things. For example, to cut a long story short, a person is complaining of, you fear a thief, or you fear something over your family, over your wealth. Use the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and create a positive affirmation out of it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. Ya Allah, take the power of this dhikr and protect me and my family. Right? Some people will even on their hands, they would read Ayatul Kursi and they look at one corner of the house and they read Allah wa la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum la ta'khudhuhu sinatun wa la nawm lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ardi ya'lamu ma bayna aydihim wa ma khalfahum wa la yuhituna bi shay'in min ilmihi illa bima sha'a. I've created a fortress around my house. A fortress around my. Imagine yourself and you're reading Ayatul Kursi, Allah wa la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum la ta'khudhuhu. You're creating a fortress around, a protection around yourself. These are words which the awliya are teaching us, not coming from myself. But why we think it's just dhikr? And in the same way, it's a dua. You ask me, Allah, through the power of Ayatul Kursi, protect me and protect my house, and protect my family, and protect my, right? Other forms, they would call this tahseen. Tahseen means fortification. So we find in some of the words of the awliya and salihin, حصنت نفسي. I fortify myself. حصنت نفسي في خزائن بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I fortify myself in the treasures of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أقفالها ثقتي بالله. Its locks are my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Its door is Muhammadur Rasulullah. On its right side is Jibreel. On its left side is Mikael. We have to read these tahsinat, these fortifications. And the awliya teach us how to protect ourselves. What's the purpose of this? The purpose of this is to raise, they call it our ma'nawiyat, raise your spiritual state to a point where you become more powerful than that which you fear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only allows something to cause you fear because you fear it more than you fear Him. And the whole purpose of this dhikr and this awran and this adhkar is to raise your spiritual state to a point where you fear nothing other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you fear only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes everything else subservient to you. And a person, when they do the dhikr in this way, you have to raise your voice. So for example, many people might think they're affected by jinn. They walk into, and jinn is a reality, okay? People are affected with maybe sihr or with jinn. You fear there's a jinn in your house. And the jinn exists, Prophet said, you say Bismillah and you don't, when you reach to eat your food and you don't say Bismillah, what happens? Who partakes with you? Shaitan is there in your house. Right? When you fear, when you're reading salah, right? And you completed your salah and you realize, you know what, I didn't even concentrate. Shout Shaitan. Right? Address him. Ya Allah, this devil has distracted me. Remove him from my house, remove him from my mind, remove him from... Make dua against him. Right? And if we go through these litanies and these awrad, they only teach us how to protect ourselves, how to protect our families, our health, and our wealth, using these affirmations. And you find in the same way, if you read it on a regular basis, then you become a source of protection, not just for yourself, but for your family, from your communities, and for the whole, and for even other people and people that you are connected to in other parts of the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to put into practice what we have learned. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open the doors to Him. And no matter what our state is, no matter what our backgrounds are, no matter what our pasts are, Allah's doors are always open until the last breath that a person takes. And in this particular point, in this particular instance, we make the intention that we intend to approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if Allah accepts His intentions, inshallah, sooner or later the doors will be open. Wa akhiru da'wana